and it still floors me every single time I watch these presidential results roll in on election night, is how close the margins are in these swing states. I mean, you think to yourself, there's all these people, 300 million Americans, the presidential election surely is decided by this or that. Comes down to 3,000 people in Georgia, 10,000 in Pennsylvania. So what's the plan? There has to be a plan. You can't just hope. You can't do what many people have done and failed to do in the past, or I said try to do. What they've tried to do in the past is, well, everyone hates the other guy, so they'll vote for me. Joe Biden sucks, so no one's going to go vote for him. That's not how it works. What is the plan to reach new voters, to motivate your voters to get out to the polls? What is the plan? Well, we're going to discuss that in depth tonight. We have swing state guests. What's going to go on in Pennsylvania? How are we chasing down ballots? Remember what they did in Pennsylvania. Michigan, what are the big issues in Michigan? Is the abortion stuff going to hurt us there? We have a ton to get to tonight. Now, before we get to any of that, there's a new chairman at the RNC. I don't know him. You don't know him. What's this guy about? What's the direction? What is the plan? He's the man who would know the plan. So right now, let's talk to Michael Whatley, the new big cheese at the RNC. Okay, Michael, swing states. We're focusing on swing states tonight because sadly, my state of Texas is not one of those and I don't really matter. Swing states are what matters in this election. What's the big one? And I know we're not being dismissive of any, but if the RNC's focused on one above others or two above others, what are they? Is it Pennsylvania? Is it Michigan? Where are you focused?
Look, I think you really hit a couple of really important states there, but, you know, we kind of think in groupings: Arizona, Nevada, Georgia, North Carolina, Pennsylvania, Wisconsin, Michigan. And then we've got a few outliers where we want to go play offense, places like Minnesota and Virginia that we would like to move into play. But, you know, the key is those 7 to 10 states are going to be where we have to go play because we won them, most of them, in 2016. And put Donald Trump in the White House. We lost most of them in 2020. We've got to go back. We're playing offense across the board right now in every one of those states.
Who did we lose in those states and why? And how do we get them back? I asked the question because when you focus on election night, which obviously you're an expert on, it's wild how small the margins actually are in a state like Georgia, Michigan. It's not 200,000 votes that cost you this state or cost you that state. You only lose a few. Why we lose a few and how are we getting them back?
You know, a lot of those are just the independents, right? So you've got to do two things when it comes to get out. First, you've got to get your people to the polls. And we know Republican voters, we know the conservative independents, and it's a matter of get out the vote for those guys. We've just got to drive them to the polls. But then you've got the folks in the middle, and it's about having a conversation. It's about persuasion. It's about reaching communities that have not always been for Republicans. We're seeing blacks, Hispanics, and Asian Americans right now that are coming to the Republican fold because they are tired of being taken advantage by the Democrats, and the Democrat policies are not helping their families, which is driving those voters to us. So we need to make sure that we are working all day, every day across the country. It's not just in the battlegrounds, but to talk to the voters, talk to their families, and make sure they understand, were you better off under Donald Trump? Are you better off under Joe Biden? That's an easy answer for every American family right now.
Democrats were about 10 miles ahead of us when it comes to things like chasing down ballots, ballot harvesting, where that's legal in 2020. Everybody knows that they've been ahead. Are we catching up? I don't expect us to be right where they were, but are we catching up? Are we even focused on this?
We are absolutely focused on it. What we want to do when it comes to the get out the vote operations is we recognize that there are about 50% of the voters are going to vote before Election Day. They're going to vote absentee by mail. They're going to vote in person early. And then we'll have about 50% that are going to vote on Election Day. We need to be reaching all of them. We've got to have our conversations with those voters before they go vote. We can't wait until the last weekend before Election Day. Half the people have already voted. So we're reaching out to voters earlier. We are directing our grassroots activities, knocking on doors, and making phone calls to have those conversations. Our mail programs, our digital programs, our email programs are all focused on making sure that we're earlier in the cycle for it. Where you're allowed to ballot harvest because it's legal, we're going to ballot harvest, and we're building those programs up as we speak. And where we've got states that are universal mail-in ballots, we're going to be running programs designed to get our folks there via those programs. Look, ultimately, we don't care how a voter votes. We care that they vote and that they vote Republican. So we're going to be reaching out to those voters and saying, here's how you can vote in Pennsylvania. Here's how you can vote in Michigan. Here's how you can vote in North Carolina, and allow them to understand these are the options, and then make a plan. And then we're going to talk to them until they vote, because we want them to follow the plan.
Michael, money matters. And obviously people don't love to talk about money in politics. It feels dirty and wrong, but money is the engine that makes the train go. And Democrats traditionally have had tons of it. How are we doing fundraising?
We are doing fantastic. We just had an event where President Trump kicked off our Trump 47 committee, which is the joint finance committee between the RNC and the president, now that he's our nominee, with a $51 million dinner. We have, over the course of the first 4 weeks of him being our nominee, raised over $100 million. The Democrats have had the president in the White House for over 4 years. Yes, they've got a big cash on hand advantage before the president won the nomination. But now that he's our nominee, we are moving very aggressively to make sure that we close that gap. One of the neat things that we've seen is the small dollar donors, the email response, the digital response, the folks that are going online and donating $5, $10, $25. That has absolutely skyrocketed since Donald Trump became our nominee, and that's going to carry us through. We have zero doubt that we are going to have the resources that we need to get our message out to every American family and every American voter. And when we have informed voters, we know that we're going to be in a position to win.
Michael, as we've seen time and time again when it comes to elections and things like election integrity, trying to litigate things after the fact may make you feel good, but it doesn't change anything. How proactive are we going to be keeping an eye on things, if you will, especially in swing states, especially in these dirty commie hellholes like Madison, Wisconsin, that can make a big difference?
Yeah, this is our single biggest focus, election integrity. Historically, the RNC has always been about turnout. We've been about get out the vote. We've had our victory programs in the states, and we're obviously going to continue that. But we have brought on board now an entirely new focus on election integrity. We have opened up a permanent election integrity office, which, as the general counsel, before I was the chair, I helped set that office up and started to run these programs out. We have two things that we want to focus on when it comes to election integrity. Number one, like you said, you got to know the rules of the road. You have to make sure that we have the right laws, rules, and regulations in place to ensure that our elections are going to be fair, accurate, secure, and timely, right? We want to make sure that we've got the time results on those that are coming in, as well as transparency is a very big thing for us. So we're going to work with the state legislators. We're going to work with the governors. We're going to work with secretaries of state and boards of elections to make sure that the rules of the road are going to promote a fair election. But when those groups won't work with us, we are going to be filing lawsuits. In fact, we actually have 82 lawsuits ongoing right now in 24 different states around the country, where we are suing to make sure that we have things like voter ID, make sure that the states are cleaning up the voter rolls, make sure that when they have mail-in ballots or absentee ballots, that you're going to have them in by election day, that you're going to have a signature requirement, that you're going to have witness requirements on those. These are all things that the American people overwhelmingly support. We've seen it in poll after poll after poll that the voters of the United States want secure elections. And so we're working to make sure that that's the case. The second big thing that we're doing is you got to be in the room. We want to make sure that we have observers and attorneys in every single room where votes are being cast and votes are being counted. So we are building up right now in all of our battleground states, and frankly, every state. We are building out election integrity programs to make sure that we are recruiting and training hundreds of thousands of volunteers and thousands of lawyers all across the country so that we can be in the room.